Forum. I was informed that the Asian Community Public Policy Forum has now existed for about 20 years, and congratulations on that anniversary. I understand it happens with about a dozen people, and apparently it's grown. It's good to see that. The Denver Athletic Club has a long history in Colorado, and having had its first articles of incorporation in 1884. As the president, I'm Dr. Rick Shaler, but that's probably not very important. The important part is my wife's family has belonged here since 1888. And I think that was I always joke with folks and say that was the time that we saw the first overdue bill from that. We didn't keep it, but nonetheless, it's been quite an experience, and we've lived, she's lived here for 7 generations, and my children now belong. And so, love to welcome each and every one of you. We have a number of local and state representatives, as well as candidates. And if you fall under that description, we'd love to recognize you. Please stand.
I am actually the president of the Asian Roundtable of Colorado, which is the sponsor organization for this event, and I would like to welcome you on behalf of all the members of the Asian Roundtable to this public policy forum. A few of the more astute members of the audience may have noticed by now that I'm not Asian, and that's true. However, my husband is Japanese from Hiroshima and a sushi chef. In case you've been to Sushi Den, you probably know him already. I got involved in this organization about a little over 10 years ago through a Chinese friend of mine. And I served as a secretary for 9 years. And this year I'm serving as president. So we'd just like to welcome you on behalf of all of the Asian Roundtable members. We're made up of 18 Asian community organizations, as well as individual members. And I just want to let you know that if your organization or you yourself are interested in joining us, we would welcome you to the table. And we like to think of ourselves as a sort of umbrella organization. We address issues that are of interest to the various and many diverse Asian communities here in Colorado. And it is because of that that we have organized this community forum today. It's always important to be able to speak to and be heard by our elected officials. And therefore, this nonpartisan event is an opportunity for Asian community members to directly interact with some of our major political leaders and candidates. We would especially like to thank our elected officials that have taken time to be with us here today. And it is very significant to our communities that your presence here was an important part of your schedule. We'd also like to thank all of you in the audience. Thank you for taking time to be here. Thank you for taking time to listen, and thank you for taking time to let your voices be heard. I'd like to thank the Denver Athletic Club for the use of this beautiful facility, and I'd also like to thank our other sponsors, all of whom are listed in the program. I hope you will take time to look at them and to, in some cases, to look at their information that they have around the room. And lastly, I would especially like to thank our organizing committee, starting with Adam Yu, who has made heroic efforts to put this forum together, and also Kevin Lung, and Laura Ogg, Sung Win, Peter Lee is not here, but also Peter Lee. Could you all please stand up and let's give them a big hand. I'm sure you all know Kim. She's the Director of New Media at Denver News 10/7. Thank you. Welcome, Kim.
Good afternoon. I am very honored to be co-moderating this event. My mom took 3 tries before she passed the citizenship test. So when she was sworn in to be an American citizen, it was one of the proudest moments of her life. So I believe very firmly that you have a duty to vote, and you have to play an active role in selecting the leader or representative who will be representing you. It will be one of the men you hear from today. Your presence here today also means you believe in the same thing. So you've got a packed schedule, so let's get started. Our first speaker is Mr. Andrew Romanoff. He is the Democratic candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives. He is running for the 6th Congressional District. Mr. Romanoff is a former member of the Colorado House of Representatives, serving 4 terms from 2000 to 2008, including 2 terms as Speaker of the House. Mr. Romanoff was born in Washington, D.C. and raised in Columbus, Ohio. He graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts from Yale and a Master's of Public Policy from the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. He also holds a law degree from DU. He currently lives in Aurora and has served as an instructor at the Community College of Aurora. Please welcome Mr. Andrew Romanoff.
Your time is short, so I better speed this up. Thank you, and please join me in thanking our moderator as well. Thank you very much, Kim. Thank you. Thank you. Shishé, arigato, gama. I have limited, far fewer languages that are spoken in Aurora, 120 languages in Aurora, 130 countries represented in that city where I live, and that is something we ought to be celebrating. I want to thank you for sharing your afternoon with me. And thank the Asian Roundtable for organizing this event. Just out of curiosity, how many of you happen to live in Aurora, Brighton, Thornton, Littleton, Centennial, Greenwood Village, or Highlands Ranch? That's the 6th Congressional District, so I'm hoping to earn your vote between now and November 4th. For the rest of you, let me ask you this. How many of you are satisfied with the Congress we've got? Just by a show of hands. Anybody? I haven't met these folks yet. I think the congressional approval rating is down to about 10%, or as John McCain likes to joke, limited down to paid staff and blood relatives. I am running for Congress because I believe we can do better. This is not my campaign slogan, but when I look at the Congress we've got, I think it's hard to see how we could do any worse. We're trying to come up with a more uplifting slogan by the time the election rolls around. I know we can do better. The House I led as Speaker brought Democrats and Republicans together to solve problems, to grow our economy, to strengthen the middle class, to get things done, not just to point fingers or pick fights. I know it sounds like a fantasy or a fairy tale, but imagine this. Imagine you elected a group of men and women of goodwill in both parties who were more interested in helping you get a job than just keeping their own. What would that look like? I can tell you, in the House I led, we worked awfully hard to make higher education more affordable because we recognized that was the ticket to the middle class. Not everybody needs or wants a 4-year degree, but most of the good jobs in the future, frankly, a lot of the good jobs today require something more than a high school diploma. And when your state falls, as ours did, to 49th in the nation in public support for higher education, very difficult to attract the kinds of companies and jobs you need to grow the economy. So we worked awfully hard to increase support for financial aid, for work-study programs. And in Congress, unfortunately, I'm sad to say, they're making the problem worse by cutting Pell Grants, by cutting financial aid, by increasing the burden of the student loans. In fact, Congress just earlier this year passed a proposal that forces students to start paying back their loans while they're still in college. The point about the student loan, as I remember, is you get the loan, you go to school, you get your degree, you get a job, and then you start paying it back. ensure equal pay for equal work. Now, in America, that's not just a good idea, it's the law. But unfortunately, in this country, women are still earning 77 or 78 cents on the dollar for that earned by a man, in part because of wage discrimination. We can close that gap, but only if we're willing to enact legislation like the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act and the Paycheck Fairness Act. The latter proposal is one this Congress has blocked. That doesn't make any sense at all, especially now in the 21st century. So many women, including my own mom, a single mom after my folks split up, was left to contend with my twin sister and me. So many folks, women, are the sole breadwinners. It hamstrings families if we continue to allow a pay gap to open between women and men. Closing that gap ought to be a priority for this Congress, but it's not. There's another priority we pursued in Colorado to strengthen our economy, to grow our middle class, to reduce our reliance on fossil fuel. We took steps to make this state a leader in clean energy, not just for the sake of our economy, although I'll mention that, and not just for the sake of our health, although that's important too, but also because we recognize that reducing our reliance on fossil fuel, and particularly on foreign oil, was a better way to defend our national security. If we are no longer so reliant as a nation on some fairly volatile regions around the globe to supply our energy needs, we will be safer as a country. And that ought to be a priority for all of us. I know there are folks in Congress, and you can just watch the debate the Denver Post hosted on Tuesday and find one of them, folks who still deny the overwhelming scientific consensus on the origins of climate change. The science is fairly well settled. Humans are a leading contribution to the carbon pollution that disrupts our climate. We have to do something about that, but we won't if Congress continues to deny the problem. And the problem is all around us. Colorado, in some ways, is the canary in the coal mine here. We stand to lose a great deal in agriculture, in tourism and skiing, in water, if we don't address this problem. I'm glad to say the legislature I led did something about that. In fact, the citizens were one step ahead of us. 10 years ago, the people of Colorado decided that we could get 10% of our electricity from renewable sources. On my watch, we doubled that goal, and since then, we've tripled it. We're making this state a leader in sun and wind. So much terrific natural resources and brain power in this state. Researching geothermal and biomass energy sources. This state can lead the nation. This nation, in my view, can lead the world. But not if we have a Congress that is still in denial. There are thousands of good middle-class jobs we can create right here in Colorado if we accelerate our transition to a clean energy economy. That ought to be a priority as well. There's one last priority I want to mention, and then I'm happy to take your questions in the time I've got left. There's some very stern-looking timekeepers eyeballing me here. We ought to do what we can right now. Not next year, not the year after that, but now, to reform our broken immigration system. It's a priority for me, not just as a candidate for public office, but as the son and the grandson of immigrants. I wouldn't be here, not just at the DAC or in Colorado. I wouldn't be in America if this country had not opened its doors to my mother, who was born outside the United States, and to her parents, and to my father's parents. I'm glad we're here. I think we are richer, not just as a family, but as a nation, in every way. Economically, culturally, intellectually. We are better off because we have welcomed so many people to contribute their talents to a nation that needs them. We don't say that often enough. I think when times are tough, we deny our heritage, and we lose a little bit of our humanity in the process. This is one issue on which I had hoped the House of Representatives might actually find common ground. I was wrong. It has been more than a year now since a bipartisan majority of the United States Senate took action. You don't hear that phrase very often, a bipartisan majority. But that means Democrats and Republicans alike, 68 out of 100 members of the U.S. Senate, more than a year ago said, yes, we ought to have security at our borders and airports and seaports. Yes, we ought to hold employers accountable. And yes, we ought to provide a path to citizenship for people who are willing to work hard and play by the rules and pay taxes and obey the law. More 1 year has passed since the Senate took that vote, and in that time, the House of Representatives has seen fit to do virtually nothing. Too many members of the U.S. House, including at least one you'll hear from later today, opposed the Senate bill, opposed the alternative that was introduced in the House, opposed the DREAM Act, opposed the executive order the President has issued, deferring action on childhood arrivals. My challenge to them, to all of us, is this. If you believe in comprehensive immigration reform, as I do, as most Americans do, and you don't like the Senate bill, or the House bill, or the DREAM Act, what's your plan? I think it is a fair challenge. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten an answer, not from this Congress, and time is running out. I don't know if you can tell, but the U.S. House is on recess right now. It's hard sometimes to tell the difference between when Congress is in session and when they're on break. But they went home to campaign for their re-election, congratulating themselves for a job undone. No action on immigration reform, no action to close the pay gap between women and men, no action on renewable energy, no action on the minimum wage, no action on most of the priorities most Americans face. I spent a lot of time over the last couple of years knocking on doors, meeting neighbors in Aurora and other parts of the 6th Congressional District. I met a woman just a couple weeks ago who was baffled by the decision Congress had made to award itself a 5-week vacation with a record like that. She said, if I did nothing, I'd get fired. Why don't we put Congress on a pay-for-performance plan? Let's pay them according to the work they perform. The problem, of course, for members of Congress is a lot of them would be dead broke if that were the system in place. Look, it's not enough just to disparage Congress. I'm running because I know that we can do better. It's not too much for you to ask. In fact, it's the least you ought to demand that this Congress get its act together. Start growing the economy. Start strengthening the middle class. Start earning its keep. At the very least, we ought to demand that Congress live by the rules it imposes on the rest of the country. Maybe that might actually incent this House to take action. I know my time is up, but I appreciate your consideration, and I hope to earn your vote on November 4th. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Roanoke. Our next speaker is Cory Gardner, who is a Republican member of the U.S. House of Representatives representing Colorado's 4th Congressional District. Mr. Gardner was first elected to the House in 2010. He was re-elected in the 2012 election for the U.S. House representing Colorado's 4th District. He ran unopposed in the Republican primary in June of this year. He graduated from CSU with a bachelor's degree in political science and attended law school at the University of Colorado to earn his Juris Doctor. Mr. Gardner has also worked for the National Corn Growers Association. Mr. Gardner began his political career as a member of the staff of U.S. Senator Wayne Allard from 2002 to 2005. He was then elected to the Colorado House of Representatives, where he served from 2005 to 2010. He is seeking election to the U.S. Senate this fall. Please welcome Mr. Cory Gardner.
Good afternoon, how are you? It's great to be here. Thank you so much for the incredible opportunity to talk about how we can get our state and our country growing again. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. And I also thank you for the kind introduction. If you look at my website, it has a biography on the website, and the biography talks about my family and growing up and where we live. And at the end of the biography, it says, Cory Gardner and his wife Jamie live in Yuma, Colorado with their 2 children in a home that once belonged to his great-grandparents. Well, my wife is with me here today, so please welcome my wife, Jamie. It was a couple of months ago where I was introduced and they were reading this bio that I just told you that he lives in Yuma, Colorado, in a home that once belonged to his great-grandparents. And the way they read the biography was this: Cory and his wife, Jamie, and their 2 children still live with his great-grandparents. So we had to explain that one. It's great to be here today. I want to share with you, it's great to see George Lynn here as well, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to visit and talk talk about how we can create a better, brighter future. I'm going to share with you a little bit about my background. I grew up in a little tiny town out in the Eastern Plains called Yuma, Colorado. I don't know if anybody here knows where Yuma, Colorado is. If you don't know where it is, it's the place that goes by at the bottom of the television screen, hailstorm coming, take cover. That's where most people know where it is, but I'm the 5th generation Coloradan, and I share a story that I think so many of us have, and I want to tell it because it represents the real American story, why we are all here today. To live the American dream, to pursue the American dream, to create our own American stories, no matter who we are, no matter where we are from. The fact that we can do it right here in Colorado to create our own American story. You know, my family came to Colorado, part of my family came to Colorado in the early 1900s. It was led by my great-great-grandfather and my grandfather, and they moved to Yuma. And if you go to that town today, on the corner of 2nd Avenue and Main Street, there's a little chunk of concrete that says J.A.S. & Son, 1910. Well, that is the place where my great-great-grandfather started a hardware store that eventually turned into an implement dealership that still remains in our family today. And when Jamie and I have the opportunity to take our 2 children for a walk at evenings around that town, we go down and we walk by that little chunk of concrete. And we can't help but ask ourselves, will our children have the same kinds of opportunities that their great-great-great-grandfather did to create a better life for themselves, to create more opportunities, to build their American story? And that's why we are here today, to talk about how we can change directions of a country that we know can be better. We know as parents our obligation to our children is to give them a stronger tomorrow, that we give them a better starting point than the one that we inherited from our parents and our grandparents. And if we don't change the direction of this country, if we don't create a growing economy and more opportunity, then the challenge will be that we never have that same opportunity to create our American story. Whether it's the Asian community, the Black community, the Latino community, how we are all one community when it comes to our American story. And so over the past several months, I have traveled across the state talking about our 4-corner plan, talking about what we are going to do to grow our economy, to get this nation back to work, how we are going to create energy independence. We can be North American energy secure, meaning that the power that runs our cars, our manufacturing centers, is developed right here in North America with both renewable energy and traditional energy. And what we are going to do what we can do for the 3rd corner of the 4-corner plan, education. How we make sure that we have opportunities for families to receive the kind of education that we know we want for our children and all of us in this country. And the 4th corner of the 4 corners plan is the environment, this incredible environment. So let me talk a little bit about each of those 4 corners to a great deal more specificity. Number 1, growing our economy. You know, we in this country face the lowest labor participation rate in 36 years. That means that there are more people out of the workforce giving up looking for work or can't find work than any other time in the past 3 decades. Median household income has declined by over $4,000 in Colorado. People are working fewer hours a week because of things like the Affordable Care Act that has resulted in declines in the work hours. And so what can we do to grow our economy? What can we do to create jobs again in this nation? I believe we need to have tax reform. I believe we have to make sure that we are easing the burden on American families and businesses so that you can keep more money in your own pockets to invest in job creation, to invest in job growth. I've introduced a bill called the Small Business Savings Account. The Small Business Savings Account says this. It's kind of like an IRA for small businesses. But what it says is simply this: if you want to start a small business, if you want to expand your small business, this would allow you to put money aside into an investment of some kind, into a savings account, into a stock market, and you could grow that investment. And when you're ready to turn around and inject that into your small business, then you can withdraw the money out of that investment without paying a tax on the gain. So it would be a way to grow investments tax-free as long as you turned around and invested that into a small business. It's a way to create jobs for people around this state and around this country. We also have to make sure that we are pursuing regulatory reform. The cost of regulations at the federal level today is almost $10,000 to $12,000 per employee, making it more and more difficult for employers around this state to hire workers, to hire people. So what can we do to make sure that we are tearing down the regulatory burden that's preventing jobs from being created? Not all regulations are bad, but some of them certainly have costs that outweigh the benefits. And so things like the REINS Act. The REINS Act is a piece of legislation that would make sure that Congress votes on regulations up or down to approve them or deny them if they have a certain economic impact, if they have an impact on small businesses where the costs are higher than the benefits, so we can make sure that we are doing the right thing for job growth around this country. And we also have to make sure that we make it easier for businesses to do business in this nation, particularly when it comes to federal regulations and federal permitting processes. If you look at what's happening in Colorado, sometimes small businesses can have to wait a very long time to receive the energy permit that they are waiting for. We can create thousands of jobs across this country by streamlining the approval process to overly cumbersome bureaucratic processes. Those are the kinds of things that we can do to create more opportunity. Education. What we can do to grow education opportunities for our families. We should never experience a time where our kids are trapped in failing school systems. That's why we have to work to improve our school systems, to make sure that we are providing school choice for our students, to give them opportunities around the state, around the country, to make sure that they will never be stuck in a school system that is failing them, that is failing their parents. I've introduced legislation called the Making College Affordable Act that will make greater use of education savings accounts, giving people flexibility when it comes to education savings accounts in order to save more money, to use it easier amongst family members, and to make sure that you can pass it on to others and to grow the amount that you can save. Introduce legislation that would allow students to deduct more interest off of their student loans every year from their taxes. Right now, the deduction is capped around $2,500 a year. This would raise that to $5,000 a year. Allow them to focus their resources on paying rent, making sure that they can help make ends meet, and paying the student loan instead of suffering because they weren't able to deduct their interest off of their taxes. And we have to make sure that our local school districts have the flexibility that they need when it comes to spending federal resources the way they see fit. You know, when I was in the state legislature, there was a reading intervention program. And this program was designed to help use federal dollars for teachers who had a child in their class that failed reading. But that was the problem with it. You had to wait until a child failed in order to access this reading intervention program. So we changed the law here in Colorado to make sure that you could access and use these resources to prevent a child from failing reading. It makes sense that we can help somebody actually prevent them from failing instead of waiting for them to fail. Those are the kinds of good policies, common sense that we can work on. And the environment, what we can do to make sure that we're protecting our resources, increasing water storage opportunities. I also want to talk about immigration reform. It's an incredibly important topic in this country. We need and we must pursue meaningful immigration reform. Earlier this year, the Republican conference, the Republican conference retreat, I spoke to all the members of the Republican majority and urged them to pursue immigration reform. Does it start with border security? Does it include border security? Yes. But what we have to make sure that we do at the same time is understand that border security alone isn't sufficient, that we have to make sure that we pursue a meaningful guest worker program. Because without a meaningful guest worker program, border security will never work. What we do to make sure that we're expanding our entry-exit system, making sure that we're expanding our visa opportunities, making sure that we are including solutions to our STEM visas. The House of Representatives earlier this year passed a bill to make sure that we had greater opportunities when it comes to visas in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Because it makes no sense when we are sending incredibly talented, bright people to colleges and then not allowing them to stay in the United States, but instead to go back home and compete against American companies. When we have the chance to use that talent, to use that brain power here in the United States, and make sure that we have an immigration system that allows them to create American jobs with American companies, and to allow them to innovate and to create right here at home. You know, we are a nation where small businesses are the backbone of our country, where big businesses started in small garages. And one of the things that I am concerned about the most is the fact that the regulatory overreach, the impediments to doing business, things like the Keystone Pipeline. When we deny the opportunity to move forward with things like the Keystone Pipeline, who does it hurt the most? It doesn't hurt the rich corporation. It doesn't hurt the oil companies. Who it hurts are the people who can least afford it. The people who are in desperate search of jobs, people who need work for their families. It's the person who can earn $20 an hour welding on the pipeline that is hurt because they can't find that job and that opportunity. Look, I'm excited about the future of this country. I am excited about the opportunity we have to build jobs, to create a growing economy, to create a nation of entrepreneurs, to get back to that notion that we can indeed do big things as a country. But to do that, we also have to make sure that we are restoring faith and confidence in our government. And I believe we can do that with a platform of solutions, a platform of ideas, and a platform that says we will put division behind and focus on ideas like the Four Corners Plan, economy, energy, environment, education. It is an honor to be here with you today. It is a privilege to be with you today. Thank you so much, and I look forward to visiting with you many, many times between now and November 4th, and certainly many, many times after November 4th. Thanks for making our community a stronger place.
We will now take a 10-minute break. We have refreshments on both sides. You could also take